This podcast is recorded on the land of the Whadjuk Noongar people. We respectfully acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters and community and honour First Nations people past and present in the spirit of reconciliation. The Positive Childhoods podcast is produced as part of the Children's Week celebrations in WA and is funded by the Department of Education and Lottery West. Thank you so much to those educators, parents and others listening in today, including kids. We really appreciate everything it took for you to tune into this podcast, finding time in your busy day to learn more about how we can support the needs of children. I'm Belynda Smith, a parenting facilitator with Meerilinga's parenting service. I'm passionate about meeting the needs of parents so that we can help families to thrive. Meerilinga is a not-for-profit organisation and a registered charity that promotes the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. We work with children, their families, early childhood professionals, planners and the community to raise the status of children in Western Australia. The 2024 Children's Week theme is All Children Have the Right to a Clean and Safe Environment. Now, this leads me on to our beautiful guest, Kristen Jamieson, who is the Research and Evaluation Manager at Kidsafe WA, a not-for-profit organisation dedicated to promoting safety and preventing childhood injuries and accidents across WA. So we've just actually discovered that we have something in common. We're both country girls and we both grew up in the same wheat belt town of Narrogin. Kristen moved to Perth to complete a Bachelor of Science in Health Promotion and began her career at Kidsafe WA in 2019. She's since worked across a number of Kidsafe WA programs aimed at reducing the risk of serious injury to children at home, at play and on the road. Kristen is a proud auntie to 3 nieces and nephews and loves working with others to ensure all children have the opportunity to grow up into healthy adults. Welcome, Kristen. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks, Belynda. Thanks for having me here.
Lovely. So I'd love to start by hearing a little bit more about you, a bit more about your background, your work history and how you got here, how you are working with Kidsafe WA.
Yeah, sure. Yes, as you mentioned in your introduction, I grew up in Narrogin, which is great to meet a fellow Narrogin person, which obviously we know is down in the Wilman Noongar country. I was the youngest of 5 kids and we grew up on a small hobby farm on the outskirts of town. We had a huge, big backyard, big bushland, lots of sheep and animals, and we actually lived in a chook shed that my dad turned into a house. So it was a very unique upbringing for me. We moved to Perth and then I ended up choosing health promotion as something to study. I think I was really drawn to that preventative side of work, of really doing what we can to prevent injuries and illnesses before they get to that serious stage in life. So yeah, once I finished up at uni, I was really lucky enough to get a position at Kidsafe WA. It's now my 5th year with the organisation, which I think is just such a credit to how supportive the team is there and how much I love doing the kind of work that we get to do. I've worked across a few different programs at Kidsafe WA and I've recently started in that new position as a Research and Evaluation Manager, which I think is really exciting. We do a lot of research already into childhood injury, just seeing why injuries are happening and what we can do to prevent them. So this is just about taking that research further and seeing where else we can go with it. So yeah, it's really exciting for me.
I love it. Yeah, it's so interesting, that prevention side of it's such an interesting space, isn't it? Just sort of, it's almost like your measure of success is kind of almost not there kind of thing.
It's very hard to prove that you've prevented something happening.
But it's so powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, really important.
For sure.
So I love Kidsafe WA. I remember as a really anxious first-time mum, probably 15 years ago now, 14 and a half years ago now, printing off a list of safety checks because I just couldn't believe they were going to let me home with this little baby without someone checking the house. And it was really reassuring. I had that document over that first couple of years to check in and think, you know, what about these blind cords and all these sorts of things. For any listeners who aren't familiar with the organisation, will you give us an overview of what Kidsafe WA does and the ways they support children and families?
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have kids myself. I just like to say that at the start. But I've been around many first-time parents and I've seen how stressful it is. I'm sure it is for you. It's a whole new world that you have to navigate and there's just so much that you have to think about. And I know there's so much information out there on parenting and what we should and shouldn't be doing, which is, I'm sure, very overwhelming. So at Kidsafe WA, we do focus on working with those parents, with carers, grandparents, professionals and kids themselves, and just teaching them about how we can keep them safe in those safe environments. And we're not talking about bumps, scratches, bruises, broken bones. We know that that's a normal part of childhood and we want kids to take risks and develop as they normally should. But just talking about those more serious accidents where kids are at risk of dying or being left seriously impacted by an injury. We know that in WA alone, there's over 24 kids that die every year from a preventable injury or accident, and there's about 8,000 hospitalised. So it's a really big issue. It has a huge impact on the child. I'm sure you can imagine, on the child, their family and the wider community. So everything we're doing is to try and raise awareness of the injuries that are happening and how we can reduce the risk of them happening again in the future. So yeah, we've got some really great services at Kidsafe WA. We really want to be that point of information for parents, especially for first-time parents who are, I'm sure, really overwhelmed in those first few months. We provide lots of free education workshops for parents that provide really practical overview of what you can do in your own home. We run antenatal workshops on a Saturday morning for new parents, just talking about what to think of in those first few months, which I'm sure are so overwhelming. We talk about how to use different child car restraints and what you need to get your baby home safely.
Big one, yeah.
Yep, big one that we do at Kidsafe. Yep. We have a demonstration house in our centre in West Leederville, so you can actually come into our centre, walk through a house setup, and it just shows you a safe setup of a home. And you can play with different products, test out different things that might be relevant for you. And then we do also offer a lot of our support to regional families. So we have support from the Department of Health WA, and we travel out to each region just to visit families and offer the same kind of services so that we know that all kids across our big state are getting the same kind of information to keep themselves safe as well.
Yeah, that's brilliant to hear. Yeah. I love the idea of that three-dimensional house that presumably the kids can go in with you. And I used to call my baby the occupational health and safety manager because he would find like whatever was the problem, he would find it.
Yeah, and kids love to tell you as well if something's not been done right, they'll tell you about it.
Yes, yes, good safety managers. I also really loved seeing on the website that you've got resources in other languages.
Yeah.
You've got videos, tip sheets, checklists. It's really an absolute treasure trove. So I'm wondering if you can go into a bit more detail, some of the things that are available to give listeners a sense of the scope of the resources that you're offering there.
Yeah. There's a lot of different injury topics that we like to cover. We know that lots of different types of injuries happen to kids, and they're quite different from when we're looking at newborns all the way up to 15, 16, 17-year-olds. So we do have a lot of information on there. It can be overwhelming, but it's the really great thing about it is you can go onto our website, you can have a look at what injury topics are relevant for you or your child, and then pull out information that's going to help you in your situation. So we do, one of our most popular resources that we have is our parents' guide. So they're really simple, short books that parents can pick up, and they just go through practical steps of how to reduce the risk of injuries in that area. So we have a parent's guide to homes, a parent's guide to roads and farms, so looking at farm safety. We know that our regional communities, there are lots of injuries that happen on farms, so talking about even visitors to farms. We might have, being from the country ourselves, we might have some city kids, city kids coming out to visit the farm. We know the injuries happen there as well. So we've got a practical guide on how to stay safe on a farm as well. We've got Baby's First Year, which is one we released a few years ago. It just talks about that first 12 months of a baby's life and what injuries are common and what we do see, and just literally just lists out all the practical steps of what you can look for in your environment, which I think is a really handy guide. One of the more recent guides that we launched was a parent's guide to backyard play, and it just looks at what the common injuries are in a backyard environment. So which backyards can vary, obviously. My backyard, and I'm sure yours was too, was a big open paddock.
Yes.
So it can be quite different to kids in Perth. So this is just all about talking about the common injuries that we see, and again, providing practical steps of how you can create safe backyards that are also really fun and engaging for kids as well. And yeah, as you mentioned, some of our fact sheets are translated into different languages, especially in WA. We know we have such a fantastic multicultural community, so many different cultures, and we have lots of different families that we speak to. So having some of our resources in languages that other than English is just another way to sort of reach them and make sure they're getting the information as well from us.
Fantastic. So there's all this beautiful, practical, helpful advice. I'm also wondering about, aside from tips and checklists and all the things we've just talked about, a bit more detail about the other ways that you help families ensure that children have clean and safe environments. So particularly I'm really curious about this house. Like how does it work? Is it sort of set up with things to find that are wrong?
It's basically, it's part of, we have a 2-story building in West Leederville, and it's basically the bottom level, and it's got a kitchen, a laundry, nursery, bathroom, every different area that you would have in a typical house. And then in each area, we've got information on the walls. You can read through common injuries that might happen there. If you're looking at the bathroom, for example, we look at, there's a drowning risk there, or there's a burns and scalds risk if children are turning on hot water. They might have that burn or scald accident. So then we talk about, we put information in the house of what you can do to prevent those injuries from happening. And it might be involved in some safety products. We sell tap protectors or non-slip mats, different products that you might use around your house. So it's a good chance to just sort of test them out and see what you might like. We also sell them in our front shop as well. But it's just a nice way to come in and just think about your own situation, walk through, spend your time there. So you can come and visit at any time, or you can join on one of our tours as well. So yeah, that's one way that we do it. I think another one to mention is our child car restraint service, which is what we're best known for. I'm not sure if you would have used it
I
back in the day.
definitely used that. I was very, I need to get this right, and no one could touch the car seat once it was set up.
Yeah. We know that it's so much information out there for child car restraints, but we also know that, especially in Australia, transport accidents are such a huge issue for us here, especially in the country, driving long distances. We've got driver fatigue, all those different factors. So making sure our kids are being transported in that safe environment is obviously very important for us. So we offer a service at Kidsafe WA, which is our child car restraint service. So you can have an appointment with a trained fitter. You can come in for half an hour. They'll either fit your car seat for you, or they'll check it over to make sure it's installed correctly. And I think most of the time there's not too much wrong with the seats. There's a user guide. It's just more of that reassurance that it's in there safely and you've done the right thing. And we also try and make sure that the parents, or grandparents, whoever's there, make sure they're comfortable in using the seat. So you're comfortable to take it out of your car, put it in someone else's. You can adjust it whenever you need to. Sometimes people forget they have to adjust the seats up as their kids grow and they're quite uncomfortable. So all those different factors, just making sure you feel confident that your child's been transported safely. So it's something that we offer in West Leederville. We have a few places around Perth at different Bunnings where you can bring a car there. We have a mobile service, so if you can't get out to us, we can come to you for an extra fee. I think it's something that I would definitely use once I have a child, because that reassurance that they're in there safely is really good.
And something you could check once you know about it and you've got your system for accessing it, you could check back in again, because it does keep changing as they grow, and then suddenly they need to go from backward to forward, and then they're 7, and when are they allowed in the front, and all
and
those
it can be
things.
very confusing as well with the laws and regulations. It does go by their age, but also their height. So they have to be at a certain height before you move them. When you don't know to put a child from rearward facing to forward facing, it's quite often not until about 2 years that we see them tall enough. But sometimes parents can get a bit confused, or they want to put them forward. So it's totally fair that there's so much information out there. But I think the beauty of Kidsafe is that you can come to us, give it all to you.
It's a really trusted, iconic organisation here. So I think, it's so helpful for parents to have that pathway and to know it's evidence-based, it's really clearly, backed up by the science, and definitely. A place to rely on.
Yeah, of course. We do also offer a hiring service as well, which I think is a really something that a lot of people don't know about.
I did that. I did. It was I remember.
It's such, if you're, especially in that first 3 to 6 months, you can come in and hire a capsule from us, so the ones that you can transfer from your car into a pram. And babies outgrow those capsules so quickly. So instead of buying a capsule and then not being able to use it in 6 months, you can just hire it from us short term. Or if you're just not ready to buy a seat yet, you can hire a long-term convertible seat for a bit longer. If you've got friends visiting, you need an extra car seat, you can come and hire it from us. So I think that's a good one for families to know about, that you don't have to go and spend a lot of money on buying a seat that you might not use forever. You can just come and hire it from us as well and get that advice at the same time, which is really handy.
Amazing. So I know that innovation is a key value at Kidsafe WA, and it sounds, there's so many innovative, interesting things happening. Any specific innovative resources that you offer that you want to draw attention to?
Yeah, I think one of our latest resources that we've launched is an online e-learning tool for school-age children. So a lot of the work we do is focused on parents and carers, grandparents and those adults. But I think it's really important to include kids in that conversation and give them the autonomy to say, this is why we do certain things and this is how we can keep each other safe. So Safety Island, it's basically an online module. There's 4 modules that kids can complete. It's on our website, and they can go through and learn about different injuries. So talking about being safe at home, on the road, on the farm. There's a farm section, and at play as well. It is designed for teachers to deliver to primary school kids in class, but we've made it really accessible. It's really simple to use, so parents can also get their kids to do it at home. You don't have to register, you just jump on our website and you can start the module straight away. So I think it's also good for parents. It's a bit of a reminder. If your child's doing it at home, you can have a conversation that opens up those discussions about how do we keep ourselves safe and how do we keep each other safe? And I think it's just a nice way to sort of get to kids in a different way. It's so important to include them in that conversation. So, it's a really exciting resource that we've launched at Kidsafe. Yeah.
Brilliant. I wonder if you've got any stories from your own experiences about the importance of child safety and the power of that prevention that we're talking about.
I have so many stories about growing up on a farm that I'm sure you would too.
Yeah, I've got a few.
But I think at the start we both said it, the power of preventative measure is a really hard thing to show. It's so hard to say that what we've done has prevented a serious accident or injury that's happened. For me, looking at my own experiences being a child on a small farm, my parents really had their work cut out for them. There was 5 of us and we were all driving cars and doing all the farm kid stuff that you would do. And I just don't think, you don't really think about it until you're older and you look back, and we were so lucky that nothing happened to us. We all made it into adulthood, but that's because of all the things that my parents would have done. We had boundaries in place. We had such an amazing upbringing, but we were told the rules and we were brought into that conversation. Yeah. And we helped each other, and it was always about looking after our siblings. So we had some near misses, definitely. I think one of my brothers almost lost a thumb when he started a bandsaw on my dad's woodwork shed.
Yep.
But I think we were just very lucky. And I think those stories are really powerful. I love that about our parent workshops, is often we'll have parents share stories of near misses or something that might have happened. And often when you think about those stories, you think there was something that could have been done to prevent that injury being so serious. And I think it just stays in your mind of, I'll think about that next time we're in that situation. Or so stories are very powerful in terms of, safety.
Thank you. So we're just about finished up, but I wonder if you've got any key information or key takeaways for those listening in, particularly parents and caregivers, about daily practical things they can do to support children's right to a safe and clean environment.
Yeah, my advice there would just be to not overthink it too much, which is very rich coming from me. My co-workers would probably laugh at that because I'm a classic overthinker.
Yep.
But I think I feel for parents these days as there's so much information there. And with social media and, Facebook groups and parents, or advice from parents and grandparents, it can be so conflicting. So I think just don't overthink it, take a step back and just really go back to those basics. And I think that's where Kidsafe WA is a great support for parents. You can come to us, the information's all been sorted, it's in one easy spot. We have some really simple resources that you can just start with. In terms of, working in child injury prevention for the past 5 years, we know that parents and carers don't ever intentionally put their child in a situation that could cause them harm. We know that, but we know that accidents do happen. So, life is so busy, especially with kids. I think it's important just to allocate a bit of time to think about injuries and how you can make those really simple changes. I think often we might find a hazard or find something that we know that might actually cause an injury one day and we think it's too busy, I've got too much going on. Just taking the time to step back and make those changes when we see them, I think is really important. Yeah.
Fantastic. So for each of the podcasts that we produce in this series, we like to ask our guests 5 quick questions just to finish up with. What's the book you loved most as a child?
That's a tough one. The one that came to mind was Animalia by Graham Bass. It's a picture book, but I just vividly remember reading that book so many times and trying to find the little boy there. And I've read that book with my niece and she loves it as well. So that's definitely a classic that comes to mind.
And what helps you to have a sense of well-being?
For me, I think being a classic overthinker and just having such a busy life, getting things off your chest really helps me with my well-being. I've recently started to send voice messages to my cousin that lives in Broome, which is really funny. We just never have time to talk or call each other up or send long messages. So we've just been recording if we have a funny thought or funny story, we record it and then just send it to each other. So I think that's really good for my well-being. I'm sure as parents, if you've got so much going on, just getting a thought off your brain and into a voice message, or you don't have to send it to anyone, just get it off your chest is a really powerful tool.
So I love it. Yeah,
something I've been enjoying lately.
Verbal journaling somehow.
It is. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really great.
And what's your happiest childhood memory? Sounds like you've got lots, but I like one.
I think I'm very aware that had a very lucky and privileged childhood growing up with the family that I had. And being the youngest of 5, I definitely got my way most of the time. But I have a lot. I think my happiest memories are just having weekends at home, just having space to be a kid and just having that freedom. Like I said, growing up in a shed, it was a big communal space and we all just were doing our own thing but together, and I think that was really part of why my childhood was so great, is just having that connection with everybody. I'm sure you have many from the farm as well.
Yeah, definitely. And what is your favourite outdoor space or place?
Anywhere, especially back home, back in Narrogin or anywhere in the country, just walking through the bush. I think being in that really peaceful, quiet area does something to you. It's really calming. My partner and I go camping quite a lot, and we often just go for big bush walks, and it's really nice to be there. I often think too, whenever I'm walking through there, is just how incredible the history of our bushlands are, and you know, we've had Aboriginal people here for over 60,000 years, and just fascinating to think about the connection they have to that land, and it's just such a peaceful area, I think, being outside in those bushlands. So yeah, definitely my favourite place to be.
And finally, complete this sentence: to help them thrive, children need...
I think they just need support, and they need us to have their backs. I think making kids feel empowered and keeping them in the loop with everything that affects them is so important. And I think with safety especially, I think so many of the time around safety, it's about parents telling the kids what they can't do, or these are the rules. But I think if we include them in the conversation, give them ownership over it, make them set the rules, I think we can have a lot more impact and just make them feel, really supported, and hopefully they do thrive into adulthood.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So I'd love to hear how listeners can learn more about Kidsafe WA or get in touch with you or your organisation.
Yeah, all of our information is on our website, which is just www.kidsafewa.com.au. We post a lot of updates on our new resources, safety advice, any upcoming programs on our social media, so on Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Otherwise, come and visit us in our centre in West Leederville, or just give us a call. All the contact information's on our website, so go from there.
Thank you so much. It's been a delight talking to you, and it's been really nice reconnecting about our country origins.
It's been great.
So thank you for joining us, and thank you listeners too for joining us. If you'd like to have more information regarding Meerilinga, please contact mycf@meerilinga.org.au or visit our website at www.meerilinga.org.au.